The morning after the devastating typhoon, Tomas and Maria step outside their small, damaged wooden home and see their village in ruins. Coconut trees have fallen across muddy roads, roofs have been torn away, and families search through scattered debris for whatever they can save. Tomas looks at the destruction silently, while Maria holds baby Daniel close. They survived the storm, but now they must face what comes after. In the distance, word begins to spread through the village. Relief supplies are coming. By morning, another kind of news traveled through the village. Help had arrived. Food, water, medicine, supplies sent for families who had lost almost everything. For people who had spent the night wondering how they would survive the days ahead, those boxes meant more than food. They meant hope. Tomas joined the other villagers and waited for his family's share, believing that somewhere beyond the destruction, people had remembered them. But before the supplies reached the families, something changed. Away from the waiting crowd, some of the better goods were separated from the original boxes. Larger supplies became smaller bags. What had been sent for disaster victims was quietly divided, reduced, and redirected. Outside, Tomas and the others continued to wait. They could see the trucks. They had seen the boxes arrive, but they could not see what was happening behind the tables. The hours passed, and the line barely moved. Elderly neighbors stood under the heat. Mothers tried to calm hungry children. Everyone had survived the same storm, and everyone had been told to wait their turn. Then a vehicle arrived near the front. The people inside did not join the line. They spoke with the organizers, received larger boxes, and left. Tomas watched quietly. The typhoon had treated the village without favoritism, but the relief line seemed to have different rules. When Tomas finally reached the table, hours had passed. A worker handed him one small bag. Inside were a little rice, some noodles, and a few cans of sardines. Tomas looked toward the larger boxes stacked behind the table. "Sir, is this all?" he asked. "That's the allocation for each family," came the answer. Tomas did not shout. He did not argue. He simply held the small bag and wondered how so much help could arrive, yet so little could reach the people waiting for it. That evening, Maria divided the little food they had received. When she looked down, she noticed that Tomas had given her almost everything. "Aren't you hungry?" she asked. Tomas smiled. "I already ate." Maria knew he was lying. He had eaten nothing. But he also knew Maria needed strength to care for Daniel. Their son would never remember that meal. He would never remember his father sitting hungry beside him. But it was one of the first of many things Tomas would quietly give up for his child. That night, Tomas held Daniel and watched his neighbors rebuild what they could. The storm had not asked who was rich and who was poor, but somehow the help that came afterward had not reached everyone equally. Why did some families receive more, while others received so little? Where had the rest of the relief gone? And what happens when a father realizes that hard work alone may not be enough to give his son a fair chance? Tomas held Daniel closer. He could not change the world that night, but he could make one promise. He would keep fighting for his son's future. What will Tomas sacrifice next? And how far will he go to keep that promise? Daniel's journey continues in episode 3.